Welcome to the Moon Manifesting Podcast with Kyra Howearth. Hi, I'm Kyra, business astrologer, moon manifesting mama, author, teacher, and mentor. I teach you how to harness the energy of the moon, stars, and cosmos so you can manifest your dreams and discover a deeper purpose to your life. Welcome to the Moon Manifesting Podcast. Today we're having a full moon chat with the wonderful Sasha Andersson from The Pagan Homemaker. Hi, Sasha.
Hi.
It's so great to have you back on the podcast. So we did have Sasha join us for episode 68, which is all about self-care with the moon, where Sasha told us all about how to amplify your self-care practices by using the moon cycle. So that was such an insightful episode. So yeah, be sure to check that one out for more Sasha goodness. But today I'm bringing Sasha back onto the podcast to share her moon manifesting success story. So Sasha has been a student of mine for a while. She was in the Herbal Moon Goddess Academy back when I had that open, and more recently, she's worked through the Soul Aligned Biz Mastermind, which was a deep dive into growing her business in alignment with her soul's purpose. A lot of astrology woven in there as well, intention setting with the new moons and all that. So there was something that was really amazing that I witnessed Sasha manifest throughout the mastermind. So that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about here on today's episode. We're going to be discussing what Sasha's manifested, how she did it, and how you can replicate her success and manifest amazing things in your own life. So, hi, Sasha.
Absolutely.
Tell us.
Anyone can do this. This isn't rocket science.
That's so true. That's so true. Anyone can do this. So, Sasha, let's begin by maybe if you want to introduce yourself a little bit for those who aren't familiar with you, that would be a great start to our episode.
No worries. Yeah. So I'm Sasha. I'm the Pagan Homemaker. I live in outback South Australia, married, mother of twin girls, Isla and Kyra. They are be 2.5-ish when this episode gets released. I don't know, I probably could say there's more on the way, couldn't I? There's another one on the way. That'll be I am actually pregnant, and by the time this comes out, it'll probably be public knowledge. So this is the first you're hearing about it. Congrats me. But another thing I manifested with the full moon, new moon eclipses, actually, just want to put that out there. That's part of the theme of today. Oh, didn't even think of that. There's a whole other tangent.
That is. We could talk about that too.
We could definitely bring that in as well. So I am the Void Moon Mama. My focus is on self-care for mums using astrology, particularly the moon. So I work very closely with the Void, of course, moon, which is I guess you'd call it a transit that happens every 2 to 3 days. And it's just a really good opportunity for downtime, rest, reflection. And that's my main focus online. But I bring in all sorts of things from parenting and general astrology, tarot, women's hormone health. It's a huge passion of mine. All these different passions, birth work, essential oils. I have a shop that I make all my own products in there. And I guess that's kind of where it started, didn't it? That I joined the Soul Aligned Business Mastermind because I have this massive list of passions, which is very Gemini. We've discussed that. I guess I should probably point out Gemini Sun, Aquarius Moon, and a Leo Rising. But I have this huge list of passions, and trying to kind of bring them into a coherent, singular vision, when you're talking about niching and having a target audience and all those kind of businessy things, trying to bring that about into a coherent offer. I was finding it really, really difficult. And that was my intention going into your Soul Aligned Biz Mastermind, was to go, all right, let's kind of work out what my focus is and narrow down on what it is I do so that I actually know what I'm talking to my audience about. And it was so that started in the new moon in Aries in April.
Yeah.
And as part of that first session, you took a look at my astrology chart. Generally, like a whole thing in general, and looking at the whole thing in like as itself, and kind of seeing where the major focuses were in my chart. And I have quite a big stellium in my 12th house. And you introduced me to more of this understanding of the 12th house as being a house related to rest, recuperation, transformation, these kind of themes, spirituality, these like loosely Piscean themes. And this is now something that I work with a lot, like working with people to find out when their 12th house is so that they can plan rest for themselves. And in looking at this house on my chart, you said, have you ever thought about running retreats? And I remember I scoffed. I was like, maybe in 5 years. Because there's this, I was already working in this space. Like I'd already bought the Void Course Moon stuff in. I did my first calendar in March. So I was already working in this space of, this spiritual woo lunar aspect of taking care of oneself. And you planted this seed of an idea in my head of this retreat, and everything fell into place. In like a week, I think I had the whole thing in my head. And you told me, like, you could totally manifest this. And I remember I didn't tell anyone. I didn't say a single word to anyone about it, but I planned the whole thing. And I was, I can bring everything in. I can bring in essential oils and aromatherapy. I can bring in some of the amazing limiting belief and shadow work that I'd been doing with Ashley from Starseed Shadows. I can bring in astrology. I can bring in tarot. We can do yoga. We can do self-care with the moon stuff. We can look at hormone health, and we can all these different topics in one weekend, targeted for mums to get away. And yes, there was always going to be content and learning, but there was also going to be self-love and downtime. I knew I wanted to plan like a break in it so that you could literally do whatever you want, go for a hike, read a book, have a shower, take a nap. And then of course I had this vision of putting a body positivity photo shoot in it to really bring that about. And that came about because of, in the end, the moons that I was working under. So that was kind of like, this is April, this is the new moon in Aries, and I actually have it written down in my I have it here, my 2022.
Oh, in your moon manifesting planner.
On the new moon in Aries says, what new projects, hobbies, or passions are you called to begin? And I wrote that I was doing the group coaching, and I wrote about helping mothers heal their relationships with themselves, and I wrote women's circles because that's another thing I had started looking into and working with, that woman's work. And then it says on the list, retreats, and it's got exclamation mark, question mark, exclamation mark, question mark next to it, actually there for posterity, written down at the new moon in Aries. But that's all I did. I didn't set it as an intention.
Okay, well, can I just pause your story for one second, Sasha?
Do.
All right. Want to throw in some context and questions for our listeners. So what we're pretty much going to be talking about here is about how Sasha manifested this retreat. She manifested this new business model that would allow her to bring in money while doing something that was really in alignment with her soul. So as a Gemini, we're both Gemini suns, so this is something that I've dealt with a lot personally, is that often we have all these different ideas, all these different things that we're passionate about, and that we often do different courses on different topics. And so for Sasha, this was really something mind-blowing, where she could bring together all these things that seemed to be disconnected, but she brought it together in this beautiful, seamless way. So I really would love to talk more about exactly how you manifested this, Sasha. So so that was pretty much my first question. What have you manifested? So the retreat, we've answered that. So
and not just the retreat, but this, like you said, this clarity of vision, this going from being this floozy Gemini who's got 40 million ideas and no actual focus. And the way this really gave me purpose, like I couldn't stop thinking about it. I could not stop thinking about it. And so when the new moon and eclipse came by in May, that's where I went, this is it. Because I had learned from you that we have these, you know, these 2-4 week lunar cycles where we can manifest, and we set our intentions to the new moon, and we do the work in the waxing moon, and we can reap those rewards. We celebrate and let go at the full moon, and we reflect and share and, you know, reset to go in the waning moon. But there's this larger 6-month manifestation cycle, and that's what I planned for. So I went into the new moon and eclipse in Taurus, knowing that we were on a Taurus Scorpio eclipse season axis at the moment. We still kind of are when this is released in 2023. And going into this, I've set this intention at the new moon in Taurus to culminate at the full moon in Taurus. Like, I'm going to set this 6-month time frame. Like, this is my work space, this is the time I've got, and I'm working around these Taurus energies, and I'm working around this eclipse energy. And I set the retreat date for the weekend before the full moon eclipse was the Tuesday. So I set the retreat date for the weekend before, so that I was actually able to get to that Tuesday, the 8th of October,
November.
And actually November. It's been a big couple of weeks. Retreat was only like 6 weeks ago, and the next one launches in 6 weeks. There's a lot going on. 6 weeks from when we're recording, not 6 weeks from when you're listening to this. But yeah, that was the axis I worked on. And so I sat down at the new moon eclipse in Taurus, and again I've got my 2022 moon manifesting planner here. I also have my Soul Line Business Mastermind notes here because I went back and checked those. Which interestingly enough, the Taurus module is about manifesting in mindset, because that's then what I did. And I have actually written down, because financial and material goals for this moon cycle, because of course the Taurus Scorpio axis is really great for money and business. And obviously the spiritual homemakers retreat was a very big money and business thing. But I wrote down that I was going to build and book the spiritual homemakers retreat. And I did this weekend. I assume it was a weekend, I don't know now. I wrote down my intention for the new moon was to set the groundwork for the spiritual homemakers retreat, and I did. I booked the accommodation that I wanted, because of course in the month leading up to this, when I hadn't told anyone about it yet, I had already done all my research and what accommodation I wanted. And so I booked the accommodation at the new moon and eclipse in Taurus, and that was my first clear action that I was going to make this happen.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So I think some takeaways from what you're saying so far about manifesting this is that you did some research. You thought about it. You really felt excited about this idea, and you started planning it mentally and writing it down. And then you took action. You actually took a concrete action that locked you into running this retreat. And that action is so powerful. So that was good. That was amazing that you did that.
And it kind of started before this, because like I said, you planted the seed, the new moon, a month earlier. The other, I don't know, phrase I keep coming back to with all of this, that I got from Ash again, was thought plus word plus action equals creation. And so at the beginning of the new moon in Aries, I had a thought, and I didn't start telling anyone about it. So it was never going to come about. And I started the word, speaking it, writing it down, telling people that I remember telling my husband I wanted to do this, about this crazy idea that was never going to work. And I did write down for the full moon in Libra, so 2 weeks beforehand, but I was releasing limiting beliefs. that was what I was releasing. So when you get to the full moon, this is that like mini cycle before the macro cycle. I did this little internal work that was having this idea, writing it down, recognizing the limiting beliefs that I held around this, getting to the full moon, releasing them and putting trust into the moon as a guide and support to release those fears, those limiting beliefs, that imposter syndrome. And that was constant. That went the whole way through. I didn't just manage to like tick that off. And then, I clarified that word, and I took that first action after the new moon eclipse in Taurus. I actually took that first action, and of course, that's the recipe for creation.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That is so awesome. So, anything else that you want to share there about how you manifested this? Is there anything else that you haven't already discussed? I'm trying to think.
I review this every month. Every moon I came back to this. Every moon I came back to, if not specific things that I was working on, like whether it was, the end of module 3 talks about pillar pages. And then the Soul Aligned Business Mastermind was so soul aligned. I remember that I started researching sales pages, and then I sat down and printed off my booklet for that week, for that fortnight, that lunation, and it was the sales page booklet. There I was thinking, all right, I need to start thinking about a sales page for my retreat, and that came through. But this is why I'd set these mini actions with that macro frame, where every new moon I'd go, this is what I want to achieve this moon. I'm going to make my sales page, or I'm going to finish this training, or I'm going to lock in this person, or I'm going to write like a plan, a social media plan. And I remember writing like a 3-month calendar with all my dates, all my time frames, all my content, all the lunations, everything. Served me really well, actually. But those all came as new moon intentions. So every new moon I was setting intentions, building towards this. And there was many, intentions that come through in my personal life and everything else. But these macro intentions that I was working with off these energies as well, that just, had smaller actions. And I would do a lot of that work in the waxing moon, because that's when I had the energy. And I didn't always have the energy, because my menstrual cycle was flipped. And that's another thing that I found really interesting through this whole process. Actually, did my cycle come back that same month?
Oh, it might have.
Very close. Very close. I think my cycle came back in March. So I had only just got my cycle back and was starting to learn how to live cyclically again, because I'd spent, 21 months after the birth of my children working with a lunar cycle. And then I had my menstrual cycle come in as well, and trying to work with that. And those were flipped. So I would generally find that I had the most energy during the waxing moon phase. My personal spring was during the waning phase. So sometimes I could use that to advantage and get a bit of stuff done then as well. But I really tried to honor that. And not only because it worked for me, and in human design, I'm a projector. So I really need to listen to my body and rest when I feel the need to rest. But that was like a focus on my existing business model, with the void moon mama stuff and working with that. And I started bringing in like waning moon social media detoxes, where I would just go offline for 3 to 5 days as part of that waning moon energy, so I could make sure that when we came back into that waxing phase, I did actually have the energy. I hadn't burnt myself out, really honoring the dark moon phase to switch everything off. And look after myself, and just working with that. And of course, that brought me into the menstruation stuff that you brought to a retreat as well. But all these little steps that I brought about, bringing about the macro vision, which then, absolutely culminated with the Spiritual Homemakers Retreat at the beginning of November, under that full moon in Taurus eclipse 6 months later. It absolutely happened.
Yes, it did. So, okay, so I think probably one of the most interesting things, well, there's lots of interesting things about this whole thing, but something that I think our listeners might be wondering is about the eclipse energy. So you you may hear from various people about how eclipses are not great for manifesting. Don't work with the eclipse energy because it's too chaotic and that sort of stuff. I've spoken about this before, probably on many episodes here on the podcast, about my personal views about working with the eclipses. Personally, I love it because they are such powerful times for really making changes in your life if you're willing to work with that energy. And not everyone is, you know.
It's very personal, and you've always got to trust your
is.
gut. And people will say to me like, oh, I feel like I want to do a burning ritual on the new moon. Is that okay? I'm like, of course it is. Do whatever you want. It's your life. It's your magic. You are divinely protected. You can do whatever the hell you want. And so if for you it doesn't feel right to manifest or work or put your crystals out under a full moon, like, you know, the classic is crystals go out under a full moon, not a new moon. But I like to charge my crystals under a new moon, because then I get to set the intention at that time when the energy is going to grow. Cleansing maybe more at the full moon because you want that energy to wane. But
yeah,
there's no wrong answer for any of this, and I just see it as spiritual gatekeeping, and it drives me mad because the number of times I will see someone say, it's a full moon eclipse, don't put your crystals out, and there are people going, oh, I've already put them out, I better go get them back inside. Like, your magic is fine with you putting your crystals outside under a full moon eclipse. Like, just because someone else is telling you it doesn't work for them, and it's not so much that someone is saying what works for them, it's that they say do this, don't do this. It's not it's not putting the power back in the individual's hands. If you don't want to work with a specific eclipse or eclipses at all, like, that's fine, power to you. But when you tell other people that they can't or shouldn't because that's your gnosis, I'm not okay with that, and I see it as gatekeeping. We talked about this recently with the tarot, like, you know, you have to get gifted your first tarot deck. Oh my God, you do not. You can get your own tarot deck whenever the hell you want. I really see it as spiritual gatekeeping. And so eclipses are extremely powerful, and yes, traditionally, like if we look back through history, they were often a time of fear because things were acting differently, but also they happen twice a year. Like, a full moon eclipse happens at least 2 times a year. And just because it may not be visible where you are, but there are 4 to 6 eclipses every single year. I can't imagine that someone would want to take away 1/6 to was that nearly a quarter of their manifestation ability every single year because of eclipses. Like, I think you're just hamstringing yourself. And it's powerful. And yes, it can be chaotic, but life is chaos. And if we want to keep avoiding chaos, it's like, you know, you can't do this under a retrograde. Well, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want, because life is chaos. And something's always retrograde. That's another example. Like, something is always retrograde. The chance of there being nothing retrograde in the sky at the time is so minimal. You know, these things happen a lot more often. It's not only Mercury that goes retrograde. It's not only the eclipses you can see that are occurring. You know, these things happen a lot. So, you know,
that's so true.
Why would you take away all your opportunities for growth and magic?
Absolutely.
Could rant about this forever.
That was powerful. So thank you for sharing that, because I feel your point there about going with our feelings is the most important thing. But what I wanted to know is about your experiences of manifesting this retreat with the eclipse energy. So I know that you're not new to moon manifesting. You've been doing this for a while. Was there anything particularly different about manifesting with this eclipse axis that you noticed?
It was definitely a long game. I mean, I had noticed long games in the past because, you know, you'd set an intention, you get to the full moon and it hadn't manifested yet. And maybe you'd look back at previous intentions when you did some journaling and realize that had come about a couple of months and moons later. But this was the first time, and I don't know how much of it was the eclipse giving me that single-minded focus, and how much it was just the idea and how just soul aligned that idea was. I don't think the timing is a coincidence. if I look at all the eclipses and the eclipse axes that have occurred since I kind of, and you know, we're constantly undergoing spiritual awakenings. But since I kind of came back to myself after the birth of my children, during my Saturn return, you know, that Gemini Sagittarius axis, which is obviously a big one for us Geminis, that's when all of this really turned around for me. And I had 3 mentors come into my life under this eclipse axis that were Geminis and Sagittariuses, under the Gemini Sagittarius eclipse axis. And this is something I've realized in hindsight. Then comes the Taurus Scorpio axis. And what am I focusing on? I'm focusing on my business. I'm focusing on making money so I can stay home with my family. I'm focusing on nourishing myself and nourishing other women. That's for me is a Taurus word, nourish. Love and creating that. And as we move into 2024 and we're kind of flipping between the Taurus Scorpio and the Aries Libra axis next year, you know, where is that moving? So I am running Retreat 2.0 again.
Yes.
And so if you're not a person who likes working under eclipses, these retreats aren't for you, because every single one of them is dated to an eclipse. I can definitely tell you now, because like in like the today time when we're recording, people don't know this date yet. But the next eclipse is going to be the 5th and 6th. So it's a Friday and Saturday, 5th and 6th of May. The eclipse is the 5th. So I want to say new moon in Taurus, no, full moon in Scorpio, because it's still on the axis and we're doing a full moon again. The full moon in Scorpio eclipse in May is the date of the next retreat. So we're still on this exact same axis. We're still on growth and shadow work and depth and money and limiting beliefs. And all of those topics are still at play, but we're not going for Taurus. We're going for Scorpio this time. And then in the works, definitely been, you know, thoughted and actioned. Thoughts and words are occurring. Actions aren't there yet because it's way too early. But then the following one in October will be under the new moon in Libra, which will be kickstarting off that new axis, that Aries Libra axis. And I'm not sure yet how that energy is going to play out, but it's going to play out. And I don't think this has been accidental. These eclipses, since I came back to myself and back to my spiritual self, every single one of them has worked with my life in just the most aligned way possible. And I don't think that's an accident. This is all divine timing.
It is. It really is. Yeah, no, I love that. And really excited for Retreat 2.0 as well. I was at Sasha's first retreat in November 2022. And I think like with that eclipse energy, and also of course the amazing retreat that Sasha provided, it was a highly transformative experience for me. And yeah, again, I think that was no coincidence, like, you know, working with that astrological energy that was at play during that time. And yeah, all the amazing things that Sasha provided to facilitate that transformation. So yeah, I know from experience that Sasha's retreats are,
thank you,
like, yeah, they're really perfect if you're looking to step up to that next level of your life and transform yourself to, yeah, fully love yourself and remove
Taurus
limiting beliefs and all that.
It was definitely about nourishing, growth, health and healing, divine feminine. My initial plans going into Scorpio. I mean, a really good example of the difference between Taurus and Scorpio is that in Taurus we had and we will be doing this again, a body positivity photo shoot. And it was very much like in nature, and the sun was shining and the creek was running, and it was all self-love. And I know for many of the girls, it was just, all of you was so transformational. I'm just there like, whoo, everything off, ready to go, no worries. And everyone else is like, yeah. But everyone came into it. Whereas the Scorpio one, and this is partly weather dependent, like it was November, it was sunny, it was warm, there was a late sunset. Also, you know, you can't have fires because it's, you know, too hot. Whereas the plan I'm planning in May is going to be, and because this is Scorpio, this is a bit more deep and dark and sensual is probably the word I'm going to go for, not sexual, but sensual. We'll probably have to have the shoot inside. And so we're looking at more of a boudoir type.
So perfect for Scorpio energy. Beautiful.
How good is that? And then, you know, we might have a fire lit and that kind of thing, but it's going to be darker because the sun sets 3 hours earlier. It's going to be more cozy. It's going to be more intimate, is a good word. And I know that many people are apprehensive about that, but it is also really safe. You don't have to do anything that you're not comfortable doing.
That's
absolutely. Kind of that energy that changes as we go. I don't want to, I mean, retreats are going to follow a similar structure and style and flow, but we're constantly changing, we're constantly evolving, and I am as well. And so the retreats will too. I mean, as I said, I'm going to be pregnant this retreat, and assuming the October one goes ahead, I'll have a baby. You know, maybe that will be the Libra energy, that partnership, that pairing. That's the channeled message I was getting just before that I was coming through, like that Libra energy, that new moon in Libra energy, working with like mum and babe, and Libras being about partnership and peace, and you know, how your relationships develop with other people.
I like that. I like that.
Well, we're going to have to bring this about, aren't we?
Yes.
I will be setting those intentions. Yeah, like I haven't as actively set the intention this time for the May retreat, because kind of the new moon in Scorpio's passed. And while I did put down that I wanted this, I also did a bit of a new moon in Scorpio sex magic and conceived the night of the new moon.
Yes.
So, like, you know,
I was about to ask about that.
Yeah, it was. I shit you not. It was literally new moon in Scorpio. My husband, I don't know if I told him that it was sex magic, but it was new moon in Scorpio sex magic, literally on the new moon, because my ovulation lined up perfectly with the new moon. And yeah, gonna have a baby.
Awesome. Now that is like a
powerful,
perfect,
guys.
That is a perfect manifestation story too.
And how like Scorpio too, like how Scorpio is that.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, Scorpio rules the reproductive organs and is so to do with like sexuality and everything. So perfect. So yeah, so in this episode, we pretty much covered 2 amazing manifesting success stories, the birth of the retreat and a bit of Scorpio new moon sex magic. I love it. I love it. So Sasha, one last question for you. Any tips that you'd like to share for our listeners today who want to manifest stuff with the moon? What are some things that you have learned from your moon manifesting adventures that you'd like to share?
Write it down. That's probably my biggest thing. I do have another journal, like I haven't pulled it out, and I know that the retreat is written down in there. That was something that I sent in an email to my subscribers after the retreat. Like, here were the 4 intentions I set at the new moon in Taurus. Here's how 3 of them came about, and the 4th didn't so much, but I didn't put the thought, word, and action into the creation of that in the same way as with the other things. Every single one of the things I had put down to manifest under that Taurus eclipse, that I then followed through with action, manifested. So writing it down, I have that notebook. I'm going to hold it up again. This planner, I have already got the next year's ready to go. I'm so ready to move on to the next one. Love this one, but I'm ready for 2023. Writing it down, but because then you get to go back to it, and this one gives you opportunity to remind yourself of what your priorities were, because not only is there, you know, your manifestation plans, but also, you know, your yearly plans. And if you look at like my yearly plans in this, there were things like support women in all stages of life and become a successful business owner and be pregnant and thriving, daily health, spiritual and business routines that create abundance. Like, these are the things I wrote down at the beginning of last year in this planner.
Wow.
I literally just read them off then. And I'm able to look back at that. And I remember I'd get to the start of each month and go, okay, what were my goals for this month? What tarot card did I pull for this month at the start? Is that still aligned with me now? Is this still something I want to follow through on? Okay, what actions do I need to put in place now to make that happen? But also then when you do have these successes, or you do want to reflect and go, hey, how far have I come on this? Like, you've written it down. It's all there. And that's my number one, because it is part of that, again, that creation recipe, that you have the thought. It's all well and good to think the thing, but if you're not going to put word into it, and that's spoken word and that's written word, because that's your accountability. And then to take the action. And it's okay if you write something down and you decide, actually, no, that's not for me right now. You don't take the action. That's fine. It's also okay to give yourself grace and go, I set this intention, I wrote this thing down, but I didn't do anything about it. And that's why it didn't manifest. That's probably the other thing is, 1, write it down. 2, you have to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
There is no silver platter. Magic is not waving a wand and things coming into existence. It is hard work. It is hard work.
Yeah.
But it pays off in spades.
That's right. And it's kind of like, how much effort you put into something, you're going to receive that back tenfold, or whatever. And so if you want to manifest something, you've really got to take that action and work hard towards it for it to manifest as successfully as you want. Like, if you only put in a half-assed effort, then you're not going to get the results that you want.
And that's my 4th intention that I set, and that new moon and Taurus eclipse. I put in a half-assed effort, or no effort. Definitely not an effort I'd put in the past. I'm quite happy to say it was that I wanted to rank silver with Young Living by the end of this year. But when we come back to being soul aligned, and obviously this company is still aligned with my soul, and working with essential oils and aromatherapy is still very much aligned with my soul, but the retreat was more aligned. And that's kind of part of it, is recognizing that, hold on, for this time in my life, that wasn't that important to me. So I didn't put the action in, and I didn't manifest it. If I want to manifest it, I'm going to have to apply some of the efforts that I put into wholesaling in my business, or the retreat, or I can't remember what the other thing was that I wrote down. I have to check that book as well, and I've got enough notes in front of me. I didn't manifest that one, and that's okay. And that's part of then that full moon and waning moon, is going, hey, this didn't happen. That's okay. We can let it go. And giving yourself the grace and forgiveness when you do that it's perfectly okay that you didn't do something, because, hey, you probably did this instead.
Yeah, exactly. And that happens. Sometimes we write down intentions at the new moon, and life happens, and we have other priorities, and we end up manifesting different things, and that's perfect. So I'm glad that you were really transparent there with the intention that didn't manifest, and why. But it's not always a failure. Like, something.
No, that's it. That's why I had these. Like, people who are listening can't see these. I put air quotes on failures for those who can't see. It was failures with air quotes, because if you were to look financially at the Spiritual Homemakers Retreat, and if you go back to what's today, the 6th. If you go back to about this time on my Instagram feed, I have spelt out every single dollar that I spent on the Spiritual Homemakers Retreat. While I was able to cover the costs of the retreat through my various income streams, the money I brought in from, the women who attended versus the money that I spent doesn't add up. So if you were to look at this as like a financial thing, it was a quote unquote failure. I did not have financial success with the Spiritual Homemakers Retreat. I did with other sides of my business, and I haven't lost any money over this. So it's, but the retreat itself, that would be a fail, quote unquote. And it's not at all. There's no failure about that thing at all. So
no, absolutely not.
Perspective is really important, and then giving yourself the grace on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing those tips. I hope that those tips are really helpful for our listeners today. This whole episode with you, Sasha, has been so inspiring. Love your transparency. Love everything that you've shared about your journeys with manifesting with the moon. Such an inspiration. So thank you so much for being here today, Sasha.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, such a pleasure.
I'm sure we'll do this again another day. Oh,
I know, so, like, stay tuned for our next episode together. Sure, there'll be another one in the near future. But before I let Sasha go, Sasha, let us all know how we can work with you, where we can find details for Retreat 2.0. And of course, I'm going to pop all the links in the show notes below. But yeah, Sasha, I'll hand it over to you to let us know how we can get in touch and work with you.
So I am Sasha at The Pagan Homemaker on Instagram. My website is thepaganhomemaker.com. You can email me at sasha@thepaganhomemaker.com. So that's SASHA. I'm assuming that I will be organized enough by the time this is released that the website for retreat will be thepaganhomemaker.com/retreat. At the moment it's /waitlist. Either one of those though will get you the retreat information. And of course Instagram will have all the updates that are relevant to the time this is being released. Because I think you're planning to release this in the first week of January.
Yeah, first or second week. Yeah.
So I think the full moon's on the 6th. The scholarships may be the scholarship process. So I am actually giving away. So last retreat I gave away 1 full ride scholarship. This time I'm going to give away 2 half price scholarships to extend the opportunity to more women. And those will have access to 16-week payment plans. So if we get this out in the first week of January, there will still be time to apply for the scholarship. Because I'm planning on that closing probably mid the second week of January. The second week of January is early bird week. So off the top of my head, it's the 9th till the 16th. That's going to be early bird week. That's going to be the week where retreat prices are discounted and you can access a 16-week or fortnightly or monthly payment plan. But yeah, all of that's going to be on Instagram. And just DM me if you have any questions or chuck me an email at sasha@thepaganhomemaker.com. And of course, I have my monthly Void of Course moon calendars for you to download, and all that information is always on Instagram as well. And if you want a reading with a session with a astrology or tarot session with me, you can reach out. And I have a growing bank of masterclasses on my website too. So all sorts of ways you can work with me. But DM me, that's always easy. I spend too much time on my phone.
Yeah. So I will put all those links down in the show notes, and I'll make sure I have the right link so that people can go check out the retreat.
Whichever link it is will be in the notes.
Yep. So you can all go check that out. And yeah, hopefully see you at Retreat 2.0. Really excited for round 2. So thank you again, Sasha, for being on the Moon Manifesting podcast today. It was a pleasure to have you here as always.
Thank you so much, Kyra. I love it. I love working with you. So.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning into the Moon Manifesting podcast today. And we'll catch you next week for another episode.
Thank you for listening to the Moon Manifesting podcast. If you're wanting more moon magic, check out my book, Moon Manifesting. Download your free Moon Manifesting calendar or connect with me on social media. You can do all of that at kyrahowearth.com.au. Stay magical, stay manifesting, and stay tuned. I'll speak with you in the next episode.